Hi there, welcome to the Silver Prince Forest Farms. My name is Timothy Silva. I'm here with my wife Jessica, who's filming. We bought this property just over a year ago after we got married. We didn't really have a background in anything agriculture, grew up in suburbia, but really wanted to try to get closer to nature. So we found this property not too far from our place of origin where we grew up, close to my work. It's in Pawling, New York, on the Quaker Hill historic area. Back here we have a western view that overlooks the Hudson Valley. And so far we love it. We definitely moved in and felt like this was home, and we tried to work with the landscape as best we could and just use it as a learning experience. For us, that was quite a steep learning curve, and thinking back on everything we've done this year has been really challenging, but fun, and also really constructive, we think. So today we're just going to go through the property and give you a quick background of everything we've been doing in the past year and experimenting with. So my wife and I, my background is in psychiatry. I specialize in child-adolescent psychiatry. I work at a place that does nature-animal interaction therapy, so I can focus on things like taking kids off of medication, which is so valuable to me. My wife is a project manager, works for a tech company out of Brooklyn, spends most of her time actually up here working from home. So here we're trying to do different type of agricultural agroforestry practices using permaculture principles that I've been just slowly learning about more and more, and best way to learn is to do. So we'll show you around. From here, this is where we started, is our deck, and wanted to just give you a good introduction to the landscape that we're working with, our zone 1s and 2s. Down here we have our forest garden, kind of pushing on permaculture orchard that we're developing using swales. The right is an area where we're building hugel mounds to extend those swales for future expansion. To the right, or the left over here, is more, including the drive. We have our chicken operation, which is combined with composting, pigs, and hopefully developing our future nursery. Just to give a little bit more about the property, this was up on a ridge here. It's a high point for the area. We're the second highest house in Dutchess County. The tallest house is right up there, the hill. And this is a ridge. Most of our property is on a ridge with very thin soil. You dig, and during some parts the bedrock is poking through. It's mostly an oak forest, not the most impressive oak forest, nominal trees that are growing here to not the most impressive size. So working with this has been definitely challenging. The previous owners didn't really manage the forest much. They left it kind of untethered. The understory for the most part is some huckleberries with an assortment of invasive ferns and Japanese barberry and that type of thing. So that has been fun to deal with. But nonetheless, applying permaculture principles here and practices to regenerate the landscape and to see what we can grow out of it has also been exciting, but really, really challenging work. And all the more reason why we're reaching out to the permaculture and the sort of homesteading agricultural community to see what kind of help we can get and guidance and any ideas, because we've found that it's a very open and friendly community, and just looking for as much input as we can get at this point. All right, so from here we'll poke around and show you a few more things. All right, so we're off the deck now, which is right over there, kind of into zone 3, more unmanaged woods at this point. We are coming up with a forestry plan with different foresters, different interventions like selective felling, maybe some harvesting of lumber. We're going to be working the understory, interjecting different species to kind of shake up the biodiversity. We have different things that I've gotten from state nurseries already, some wild plums, cranberries, trying to figure out ways to manage the deer hunting and keeping the deer off of our young seedlings, as well as managing the invasives. In the back of the property over here, there's a tiny little pond. It's a pretty natural feature that is tucked away back there. But in between here and there, this is our really bulk of our property, and we have a total of 20 acres, and that has not really been managed yet, but we're open to exploring different ways to work with that space. In addition, we have 2 lots. There is a second buildable lot that we're trying to figure out what to do with, how we can work with it and build on it, or also figure out ways to reduce our burden of our taxes. One of the benefits where we live is we're 1 hour from New York City, and it's nice because it puts me close to my work, puts my wife close to her work. However, our tax burden is really high, and that is really challenging. So come with me, I'll walk into like a more managed space. Follow me, we're gonna go explore some of the work that I've been doing. This area over here has been more intensively managed since I moved in. A lot of felling of trees to open up the canopy a bit, create more of that savanna-like a feel. One thing to note is, my wife and I, we both have 2 jobs. We have to work a lot to fund this and to be able to actually live here, in addition to like the challenge of learning everything as we're doing it. So right here is our forest garden that we've been developing. It's a polyculture, a guild of different trees and shrubs. We got Nanking cherry, green onion, sorrel, some Shipova trees. We have over here some fig, elderberry, and we've just been planting a lot of diversity. All the mounds are full of different things, seeing what's going to do well. One thing I want to point out here, especially on this upper area, is right here is the bedrock. With forming these swalls, you don't have to go that close to it. Forming the swalls was a way to consolidate the soil to help hold nutrients onto this slope. And all these upper swalls are built on contour. You can see we're protecting from the deer. Hopefully next year we'll be putting in more permanent deer fencing, some type of electrical fencing or non-electrical. We're still exploring that option right now, but this has become such a big investment that we will have to do that. Big pile of wood chips inoculated with wine cap mushrooms. We're currently managing this. Up until last week, these swalls were filled with a cover crop. It looked like a thicket, and that was all chopped and dropped down, and we've applied mulch. So as we go through the mounds, you'll see that I've done that less and less because I'm still working on that. This is just a little vegetable garden bed that my buddy and I built just to grow some veggies in the meantime. Almond tree, butterfly bush, lots of stuff. More Shipova, sunflowers, native flowers to bring in pollinators. And in between the rows, we've been running our pigs. So we're experimenting with different types of silvopasture, using the pigs in different areas, planting cover crop. This is some sorghum, Sudan grass, and sun hemp, just because it was summertime. It was a little warmer up here in our zone 6. And hopefully trying to figure out ways to utilize this space, whether for alley cropping or just for running our pigs through and giving them some good forage during the warmer parts of the year. One of the challenges we run into with our pigs, which you'll see later, is that we're not using them for meat, and they're still getting used for other things on this property, whether it's for their ability to be an intervention on a space like this and get some forage, as well as cycling those kinds of nutrients. Follow me down here. So one thing we've been doing is we've started with a small scale for a variety of different things, such as the forest garden, the animals, and over time we're trying to figure out how we want to scale things up and what makes sense financially, what we enjoy doing, what makes sense for the property that we're working with, and running into certain challenges around standardizing and mechanizing the way we'll be kind of coming through these different spaces. And the permaculture orchard or forest garden that we're developing is one of those things that I do wonder the most about, because it has taken up a lot of work, but I really do enjoy the work, and I find it to be fun and aesthetically pleasing for the landscape. So in here we have more mounds, more rows, hazelnut, pear, Asian pear, almond trees. Towards the north end, we're going to be planting more larger trees, chestnuts, walnut trees, native blueberries. Kind of speaks to the acidity of the soil and my need to apply lime, which came out through my soil test. A lot of different diversity. We got asparagus, josta berries, using sea berry intermittently. Here's a sea berry for nitrogen fixation. And trying to break up, where we're planting these different trees to break up those pest cycles. So here's a plum tree. Unfortunately, I hadn't realized plums, cherries, and peaches are so close, so I unfortunately planted them a lot together. And over this way, we are going to be expanding these rows. We're going to be doing it using hugelkultur. So as I kind of harvest some of these trees, we're going to be burying these woody debris to create hugel mounds. Oh, there's a baby deer. Just love it back here. And hopefully pushing this sort of perennial crop system out this way, and all the way going to the property line. As we harvest the trees, we're trying to figure out different ways to make use of that wood. This is one way. Firewood, we're looking into doing some milling, on-site and off-site milling, as well as mushrooms. And the mushrooms is something I'll show you more about later. We're definitely going to be gearing up to do that more and more, considering the majority of our property is oak. And we feel pretty comfortable with doing that type of operation, and will be something we can get income off of right away as we continue to take some trees down and open up that canopy more and more. Down here we have 3 swales that are pulling water off of the drive. We have an upper swale over here. This one has got some apple trees on it. We got this one here. This has got cherry trees. And then our third one, again, more guilds. This is plum, peaches, nectarine with raspberries interplanted, yellow horn nut for some nitrogen fixation, some sea berry. Working on that herbaceous layer, which I found to be very challenging, is starting that herbaceous layer by seed inside and planting them by hand in here. This is some giant Shasta, got some comfrey, some chop and drop that's been happening with our cover crop over time. And this all funnels into the 4th row, which zigzags the rest of the way down. And we have a patch of pawpaws, persimmon, pecans, a lot of other trees. And we're seeing what does well and preparing to do some more nursery work, which is another enterprise that we're considering. We realize that growing our own tree stock and plants is going to be key to keeping our input costs down and helping us to expand this type of system. But at what worth? What do we need to expand it? And is the nursery a viable business that is worth pursuing, in addition to us growing our own plants and helping to fill in some of the gaps within Zone 1 and Zone 2, as well as pushing out that type of system. All right, let's go check out the animals. I'll take you up there. All right, back here in Zone 1, closer to the house again. We've been preparing some beds using broad fork, chop and drop, cardboard, wood chips. This is going to be a site for grapes. If you come over this way, I have an air prune bed that I made. This is full of different nuts, chestnuts, hazelnuts, walnuts, lots of different things we're trying to grow from seed to reduce our costs. And it looks like I have more trees than I know what to do with, especially considering these are nut trees and they're rather large. So I don't necessarily have designated spots for them yet. And I'm going to need to really get to work in terms of my forestry management. Grass is wild, letting things come in, letting the bugs just do their thing and enjoy the wild flowers. Birdhouses, trying to increase as much wildlife habitat as possible to get that resilience of a thriving ecological system. So moving up here, we have our driveway, which over time we're considering moving as part of our addition to put more bedrooms on our tiny house here, because we would like to have kids, foster kids, and we're going to need the space. But the drive here on the southern part of the house may be better used for garden space, patio space. So as of right now, we have a lot of plants over here. These are all going to be going in the fall. Some nursery baskets. But whatever doesn't go in is going to be moved over this way into a nursery space that we're preparing with our pigs. So we've been using the pigs for a variety of different interventions. They've been here for just over a week now, ripping up this area that I will be shaping into some garden beds. These are Kune pigs. They're sweeties. And they just add a lot of life to the property. Over here we have.
Hi guys.
Yes, the pigs are my wife's project. She really enjoys working with them, and they're very sweet. So. Here's a swale that I built leading to a pond. Working on getting some bentonite clay in here and compacting it. Haven't fully gotten to that yet, but slowly working on that project. And then deciding what is going to be planted into this swale over time, some type of fruit trees or ornamentals, something that will be enjoyable. We have chickens in here, different breeds. English Orpingtons, Polish chickens. We got our compost back there, and trying to build a nice little habitat for them. And we are considering breeding and raising pullets, selling pullets, because this is such a unique mix of chickens, and we do enjoy them. And we don't think that people will be dying to eat them as much as enjoy their cool feathers. In here we have some rootstock. This is all ready for me to graft some of my fruit trees onto and kind of work that nursery operation, which is something that I'm still learning a lot about and really excited to continue to learn about and expand upon. And still figuring out how I want to build these nursery beds in here. In the back is going to be a work shed that we're building this fall with a bigger coop and a winter storage for the pigs, and that we'll be building by hand. And then in addition to figuring out how we'll use this space for maybe some vegetable gardens, market gardens, but not sure we have the time to manage and run something like that at this moment. So we're not necessarily prioritizing it, but keeping it in the back of our minds. And come on over this way, I'll show you where the the mushroom operation is going to be set up. All right, welcome. This is the north side of our house. We have some shiitake logs here, as well as oyster mushrooms and lion's mane. This is a batch that we made this spring, so we're hopeful that we might get some fruiting this fall. We do plan to upscale this operation this coming spring. We're working on our design for our infrastructure, and that's going to go back here into this area around this shed, where we're going to build a laying yard and a place for inoculating and fruiting the logs. So we do feel really good about that as a sort of short-term enterprise, because we will be felling different trees, and we find that the shiitake are really happy in the oak, as well as we've had some logs fruit from our oldest batch that were great, and we really enjoyed that and found that they were good quality, that we felt comfortable we could sell. This is also where we're probably going to be putting an addition on the north side of the house, sort of in this space, building off of the house up here. And this western view, as much as it's great, we can see the Catskills, we can see Mohonk out in New Paltz in that Hudson Valley. It gives us really nice sunsets. It has been tough in terms of wind. There is a lot of prevailing winds, especially in the winter, that kind of rip through here. So we're not sure exactly how that's going to play out in terms of our trees as they mature. Will they be able to manage and take that type of wind? Especially since I've cleared out a lot of trees within this space, and it's opened up our view. It's been great. It's pulled in a lot of sun. However, the wind can be tough, so that's something I'm trying to consider and think about in terms of managing and designing for. All right, thanks for coming on the tour. It's been great to show you guys around and everything that I've been working on for the past year. It's definitely been a challenging year to learn all this stuff, and still trying to learn as much as I can every day and learn from as many different people as possible. I think one of the biggest challenges is, one, the cost of all this to live here and to fund this kind of enterprise and project is really demanding on me to do my jobs and to work the 2 jobs that I have, and my wife as well, and then in all my free time to be out here working every day. That actually is not the hardest part. That's pretty easy. Mechanizing and moving in the direction of finding better ways to do different things, thinking about getting a tractor is definitely something big. But the soil and the earth here is really hard to work with. I think, building up the soil is something we are trying to figure out ways to do. This is a rootstock bed. We did grow some potatoes earlier this year. We found that up here on the ridge was a definitely particularly thin spot in terms of soil and the bedrock poking through, so we figured we'll just throw this in here. But the big question is, how to continue to expand and cultivate different areas, intervene in a way that makes sense, and working with the ecology, improving it, as well as offering us some kind of financial yield if possible. And we're definitely toying with a lot of different ideas, things like combining this with my work in psychiatry, finding that a lot of people have some sort of nostalgia for connecting with nature and understanding how food is grown and grown properly and grown in a way that is really healthy, not just for us, but for the world around us, the environment that has raised us. So trying to tap into that and figure out ways to kind of stir up the community and get people involved with the kind of things that we're doing here, and hope that it'll become contagious and bleed into the rest of the world around us, the suburbia, and then seeing if people can adopt this type of lifestyle. And that's something we think makes sense, but just not sure exactly how to proceed with that. We're keeping our radar open there, but also trying to figure out how to grow food and what kinds of food makes sense, and figuring out ways to work with this landscape. So any input is greatly appreciated, and I look forward to collaborating with anybody out there.